Welcome everyone to Kings and Queens Love Women's Celebration. I really want to say thank you for everyone, all the panelists. Thank you for everyone that's attending this right now, this event. Just a little bit more about what Kings and Queens Love is. It's about inspiring love into a new generation, all the present, and also being able to inspire love into your loved ones, whether you're single, whether you're married. You want to bring in new love to everyone that's here. And better yet, also, the reason why I'm doing this panel is because I feel like, we have Women's Month. I think that is really important to, really appreciate our women every day. It shouldn't just be a particular month, it should be all year round. And I brought some lovely, lovely panelists to you. And then I'm going to let my host, Marquise Francis, introduce them. But more so, I think that, we should appreciate women every day. We all have a mother that we all came from that without them we wouldn't be here. So I think it's really important to appreciate your mother, appreciate if you have a girlfriend, a significant other, a wife, you have a daughter. I think it's very important just to appreciate what women do for the society. Without women, we wouldn't be here. And I really think that, as I said before to the panelists pre-call, that it's something about when you meet a great woman, your life just gets better. And I think that's very true. And I think that, when we, start dating somebody, start talking to somebody, get married to somebody, like we're here. When you meet a great woman, a phenomenal woman, you just go up here, you just skyrocket. It's like stock. You get a great stock and it's like you just keep going up. But more so, thank you for everyone for joining. Keep inspiring love to everyone that you're with. And here we go. I'm Marquise. I'm my host. Kick it off.
Absolutely appreciate that, Ace. So happy Sunday, everybody. Beautiful people. It's crazy to think it's been 1 year since quarantine has started. It's been in the air pretty much everywhere except for Atlanta and parts of Florida, which we know. But we're still here, as resilient as ever. Black folks, especially, we do this. As Ace mentioned, Women's History Day month. It's every day, especially for Black women. We really want to celebrate you all. My name is Marquise Francis. During the weekday, I'm a reporter for news, but tonight I'm helping all of us just navigate this important conversation all about women, talk about their triumphs and their navigation in their careers, self-love and healing along the way. So thank you all for pulling up, and I'd love to introduce our amazing panel. First, we have Crystal Garner. For a decade, Crystal KG Garner has proven to be a multifaceted woman in media of immeasurable talent. From actor, model, on-air personality, marketer, event manager, philanthropist, and consummate basketball hoopster. Ace said she has a better jump shot than him. She embodies what it truly means to be a woman of her own narrative. Currently, she serves as the GM of the Trap Music Museum, a mentor, business investor, and so much more. And if you're like me and watch BET, you saw her win. I forgot the name of the show exactly, but it was a BET show with T.I., and that's how she got this amazing role. So shout out to you, Crystal. Next, we have Nori Pouncil. Nori is Garufona. I don't want to pronounce that wrong. I know I did. Help me out, Nori.
Garifuna.
Garifuna. I should know that because one of my frat bros, he's always talking about it.
He sure
Garifano.
is. Ilbert Sanchez.
There you go. Afro-Latina self-trust coach and founder of Self-Trust System, which helps female founders thrive in discomfort, seeing a void in the health and wellness space for women of the African diaspora. She has devoted the past decade to helping women tap into their power and course correct to align with their purpose, resulting in more impactful business leaders, partners, and members of their communities. Nori has been featured in various outlets, including Forbes, Madame Noir, Women's Health Mag, Fierce by Mitu, HuffPost, and Black Bride Mag. And she's also been featured on national TV and local TV like Univision, Good Morning Washington, ABC 7 News, and News Channel 8. And next, we have Cassandra Rosario. Cassandra is a pioneer for marginalized in the dining scene. She created Food Before Love in 2012 to combat stereotypes that people of color face with regards to food and travel. And if you were special like me, you've probably been on one of her cruises from a few years back. They were lit. She's one of the first bloggers to address the disparity in dining, long before mainstream publications started to address issues of diversity in the food space. And when she's not putting on food before love, she runs the Rosario Group, an events and marketing company with a focus on hospitality based in businesses and organizations. And she's curated culinary events both nationally and internationally. And last but certainly not least, we have Aisha Ramsey. Aisha is a licensed psychotherapist with a focus on mental health treatment in communities of color. Based in New York, she works with young adults to facilitate healing, self-exploration, and self-love, and partners with various community organizations to educate and foster safe spaces. She's also a published writer, advocate, and artist. Thank you all, ladies, for all joining us all this evening. How are you all doing?
Good. Doing great.
Excited to be here.
Great.
Y'all are amazing.
No, you all are amazing. So I just wanted to I'm going to definitely go specific questions to specific women. But just to start out, as a woman, my first question is, how do you like to be celebrated in practice? What does it actually look like? What does it feel like? How often is it, right? Ace just said, kicking things off, it seems like when a great woman comes into your life skyrockets. And I think no matter what that relationship is, whether it's familial, whether it's romantic, whether it's just a friend, that is true. But I'm curious, what does it look like in practice for you? How do you all like to be celebrated? Because I think for a lot of people, they think they're doing something right. They think they're acknowledging in the right ways, but yet they're missing the mark, especially for the fellas out there who are tuned in. So KG, I'll start with you. How does it look like for you?
Oh man, because I'm sitting here like, wow, how do I want it to look like, or how it should look like? Honestly, I think it's just acknowledgement. You know, it doesn't have to be bells and whistles. I mean, I often, and this is me being candid, it was one time that my coworkers, and I work in a heavy nail environment, and they got me like flowers just randomly. And it wasn't something that they all often did. And it was like, yeah, we just decided to get the ladies on the team flowers. I was like, it's only two of us. But it's like, I prefer you just acknowledge, you know, what I've been doing that you felt that's been great, or just my presence of me being a Black woman at a table full of men. Just acknowledge it in public, acknowledge it in private, say thank you. I don't really need the bells and whistles of gifts. You know, and I don't know if that's a Southern thing, but it's always like, oh, and I'm like, you could just say, good job, you know? But I think often people think you have to go above and beyond to show it. And sometimes it's just the small things. So yeah, just acknowledgement and keep it simple.
I think that's super, super important. I think oftentimes, especially men, they think you have to roll out the red carpet, but just acknowledge it.
Somebody just said, nothing says thank you like money. And that's right. You can go get cash. The flowers die, but that cash can go somewhere, you know?
There you go. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, for those of you who are watching online, please definitely chime in the chat. Ace or myself will get to the questions, comments. We love for this to really be a conversation. Nori, how about you? How does celebrating you look like in practice?
Space. One of my favorite ways to be celebrated is to be given my space. And I'm someone that enjoys her space a lot. And my husband and I, we actually have that point in similarity. And when my husband goes he's out of town this weekend, I couldn't be happier. Like, I'm like, go ahead, go take an extra day while you out. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not texting him, I'm not hitting him up. Like, we have this relationship where we value each other's space a lot. So the way I like to be celebrated is to just be given my space whenever I need it, not be threatened by my need for space and my enjoyment of space, and to be supported through that, because I like to give him his space too. I also think it calls for just a healthier relationship. The same thing with my family, with my friends. Sometimes people struggle with that because it's uncomfortable when you need space and you set these boundaries, and people don't like to be challenged in that way because it makes them uncomfortable. But it's how I choose to move. So for me, space is very important, and that's how I like to be celebrated. Nothing says I love you like sending me to a hotel for a weekend by myself.
That's great. And I'm curious, actually, how did you get to that point, right? Because I have friends myself who say, oh, when I get married, I'm going to have a separate bedroom from my husband, right? And I think everybody laughs about it. But for some people, that works in practice. And I think a lot of people often like to talk about how communication is key. But when they talk about communication, it's often the talking part and not enough listening. And I can only imagine for you to be married and for you to have people who respect your space, it has to do a lot with people actually listening to what works for you. But how did you get there even in your marriage? Because I don't know if obviously it wouldn't work for everybody, but you found a way to make it work.
Yeah, so JP, that's my husband's name. JP and I have been together for 10 years, and we've been married for going on 6 years actually this year. And when we first got together, it wasn't like that. I was of the belief that we need to be doing everything together. You trying to do what together without me? Absolutely not. I need to be with you by your side. You want to go to which room in the house? I want to go to that room in the house. You want to watch what show? No, we want to watch this show together. That's how I was brought out. So I started to realize that a lot of that was me avoiding myself, avoiding the things that I was dealing with internally that I didn't want to face externally. So I really began shifting my beliefs around that when I began my own healing in 2016, after my favorite uncle was murdered in Honduras, where I'm from originally. And I had to begin to face myself because I realized in that moment, I didn't know who I was. I was just so caught up being something for everybody that I had no idea of who Nori was beneath that surface. So you need space to do that. You need space to be able to pull back those layers and to begin to rediscover yourself and know who you are and know what you like and what you don't like. And I realized that I didn't like being with him all the time. I like being with other people. I like being with my friends. I like being with my family. I like being alone. I like to read. I like to walk. I like to do other things that don't always have to include my partner. And it was very uncomfortable to do that because I thought I was doing things wrong at the beginning because of that programming happening in my subconscious. So it took a while for me to get to a place where I felt like I'm all right. You can go and do your own thing. This is the first weekend he's actually going out of town since we moved to Fort Lauderdale almost a year ago. And I'm like, I can help you pack, go ahead. He was like, you think I should go? I'm like, do I think you should go? I think you should be packing already. Like, what are you talking about? Like having the house by myself is something that I haven't had because we are here all the time. We both work from home. So we're always together. And I've had to learn that space is not only healthy, it's necessary. And it make our relationship stronger because he also likes space. So when he's playing Warzone or Call of Duty or whatever he does in his office, I'm like, you do that, and I'm gonna go do me over here, and then we'll come back and have a meeting in the evening, and then we go to sleep. It just works for us, and I think it's because JP also likes his space that it works for the both of us. But it definitely is healthier for our relationship to be that way.
That's great. And obviously, I think the pandemic has challenged a lot of relationships. Obviously, you're not necessarily going to the office, you're working from home, and oftentimes you don't even realize how small your personal space, your home is. So that's great to hear how it works for you. Cassandra, what is celebrating you look like?
I think that the way that being thought of manifests can look different for me, but being thought of is like how I feel the most celebrated. So whether it's personal or professional, just like seeing something and giving me a call like, Cass, I thought about you, or buying something like this made me think about you, sending me an article, like those things make me feel celebrated, knowing that I'm being thought of, that, someone's holding space for me in their life. I think that means the most.
Okay, appreciate that. And Aisha, how about you?
I think I'm very similar to KG. I don't need bells and whistles. I think just being seen and being heard is a great way to celebrate me. It might be the therapist in me, but I love to have things reflected back. So, oh yeah, I remember you said that, like very small things like that mean a lot to me. Similar to Cass, like just knowing someone's holding space for me in their mind and their daily lives, like that means a lot.
Great. So this is another question kind of for the group, because I think you all are definitely at points in your life and your career where you've done some great things, but you've also possibly had to incur some challenges and kind of had to navigate that. So I'm curious, what would you tell your younger self? And Nori, I'll start with you. What is something you would tell your younger self that maybe would have made things a bit easier, made things, your journey a bit smoother, but you would also want to tell other people of how to navigate?
I would tell my younger self unconditional love is uncomfortable, because I really wanted people to love me growing up, and even probably salute to a certain extent as a human. But my idea of love and that unconditional love was very conditional. It was, I love you if, I love you when, I love you because. And I learned love to look like that. And because I learned love to look like that, I wanted love to look like that. I expected love to look like that. And when love wasn't like that, I felt very threatened by that. I was very uncomfortable by that. And I didn't think it was love at all. So, what I teach my clients is that you have to be willing to be uncomfortable for yourself. And I had to be willing to be uncomfortable for Nori, whether that meant in the form of boundaries, whether that meant in the form of stepping out of spaces that no longer serve my soul, whether that meant into stepping into spaces that require me to play bigger and to show up differently. It was uncomfortable. And it has been that unconditional self-love, that unconditional discomfort that I give myself daily, that has allowed me to not only get to where I am, but to really help my clients transcend levels they hadn't even thought about that were available to them.
Mm-hmm. And KJ, I'm curious for you, as someone who is probably a lot more maybe client forward facing, someone who's an on-air personality. I'm sure even beauty is something that maybe you've had to just navigate. I think beauty is constantly changing and evolving. The perception of even this whole Eurocentric idea of what beauty should and shouldn't be. But I'm curious, in your career and the things that you've been able to accomplish, what is something maybe it would have been great if you knew 10 years earlier that maybe would have made things a bit better for you?
10 years, if I knew earlier, I would have never let my mom put a perm in my hair. And it's funny you say that, because I was over here thinking of what I would say. And, you know, I just remember when I first started modeling and I was in high school, and I used to get my hair permed every week just for my auditions, because the Eurocentric form of beauty was straight hair. And I just couldn't have it out of place. And since my hair was short and it was like a thing, it had to be chic. So I think, you know, if I would have been conscious enough at a young age, I mean, it's something I couldn't have handled. But I mean, I wish I could have been woken up to say to my mom, like, don't do it. But I mean, that was our culture. Everyone was doing it. But I just feel that now we're in a place where it's celebrated, and I'm grateful for it. But it's like, dang, my hair won't look like how it could have looked if I wasn't getting perms every week. So, you know, that's one thing. Another thing I think that would have helped me, two things. One, if I would have never doubted myself with basketball, I'd be looking the way these girls play. I'm like, I could have definitely went to the league if I really focused 100% on just basketball. Like, if ball was really just life and I wasn't doing everything else, I could have went to the league. But lastly, I'll say, and it's kind of to go on to, you know, his point of that loving yourself. I think I was too hard on myself. And I was too hard on just not realizing how special I was, and that I wasn't just another girl in New York City on the IRT, you know, whatever, that's my movie. But I wasn't just another girl, and just really appreciating who I am and my worth. I think that would have played a major role into the woman I am today.
Okay. And Cassandra, being a business owner, especially in hospitality during this pandemic, I'm sure has presented its own challenges, but I'm curious what, for you, in navigating, owning your own business as a Black woman, you know, if you knew something earlier, how would that have maybe helped you out?
This for me is personal and professional, and it's a two-part. It's like document everything, but also like document how you feel about it. I think like if I would have documented so many things, I would feel more solid on like trying to answer questions for myself. And just trying to remember, like, I know old version of me, like I swept a lot of things under the rug. I was quick to like move on from things that didn't work. So I feel like documenting what happened would have helped me both in my healing and in just professionally, but also, you know, just documenting how I felt about it. So yeah.
Appreciate that. And Aisha, how about you? What would have helped you if you knew it a bit earlier?
I mean, I think this is something that I try to remind myself and try to practice every day. So I'm still working on it. But the idea that I'm not too much, you know, I think particularly as a Black woman, you grow up being told to make yourself smaller. She's too loud, she has too much personality, she has too much sass, that word with a passion. But really reminding myself that it's okay to take up space. I wish that that was, you know, reinforced a bit more when I was younger, that my needs aren't too much, that it's okay for something not to work for me. It's okay for me to verbalize that. It's okay for me to be angry. Just allowing more space for myself, I think that would have been helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of that, even it kind of reminds me of what Nori said in setting boundaries. And I think one of the things I've heard, it's so simple, right? The power of no, but oftentimes, whether it's corporate America or friends, right? People feel like they're entitled to your time, and even someone saying something as small as like, "Hey, let's get something to eat." It's like, no, like I don't, you know, I'm not up for it. You don't even have to give an explanation. A no should be enough. But I think that's a big part of it. But someone who works in the mental health space, what does healing look like you, especially for women, right? Because I think the part you just said about knowing that you're enough and that you're not being too extra is super important. And actually, I think in more recent times, it's been embraced and it's been celebrated. When you think of the women who are authentic, right? Everyone loves to use that word authentic. And it's funny, I actually just had a talk with coworkers about this. For so long, race wasn't talked about in your corporate space. And now it's all anyone wants to talk about. Tell me about your feelings and things. And even saying, I don't want to talk about this here with you right now is a part of setting those boundaries. But just in general, can you talk about maybe that healing that you've evolved and learned about what's important when it comes to mental health and women and kind of coming of age?
Yeah, you know, I think Black women in particular, and that's my focus, that's predominantly the patients that I see. Healing, well, I'll speak in two parts. I'll speak for myself and then I'll also speak for my patients. For me, healing was connecting to myself. I think for so long, I really thrived on being like amicable to different situations and being able to kind of just like blend in wherever I went. And that often meant that my needs went unheard and unspoken. And so healing for me was just recognizing my own voice and being okay with like hearing my own voice and being okay with other people hearing my voice. In my practice, I see healing looking a lot like forgiveness. You know, I think that's a part of healing that doesn't get a lot of shine, but being able to forgive yourself for the ways that you didn't treat yourself well, for self-abandoning, for, you know, allowing people in your life that weren't great for you. There really does need to be space for that forgiveness so that you're not kind of re-perpetrating the harshness that's often given to us as Black women. Yeah, I can speak on that a little bit more later, but yeah, forgiveness is a really big part of healing when it comes to self.
Great, thank you. And Nori, can you tell me a little bit more about this self-trust system? And you talked a lot about almost like being comfortable in the discomfort. And I think that's where obviously a lot of the growth happens. I think when the older you get and the more things you see, the more people you meet, you realize the most successful people are comfortable being uncomfortable. But can you talk about unlocking that potential?
Yeah. So before I go into, I just wanted to like echo what Aisha said about forgiveness. I actually was reading a few books this past month, and they all talked about how all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. And often we think about forgiveness being something external that we do for other people, but all forgiveness we do is to free ourselves and not to free others, because we can't control them. We can't control what other people do. And it's actually a big part of the self-trust system. So the self-trust system has these two parts. The first part is the journey that we go through as we begin to rebuild our self-trust. And what I've discovered is that there are 4 pieces to this puzzle. The first thing is being reactive. That's the first stage. When you're operating out of old patterns and you're utilizing those old patterns to achieve new goals or to achieve new new dreams that you have for yourself, and you're trying to figure out why isn't this working, and it's because you're using something that no longer works to try to do something new. So you have to think through things differently. The second stage is what I call the responding stage. Here's where you begin to implement that self-forgiveness, where you begin to see how are you showing up. It's like if you want to eat better and you find yourself having ice cream for dinner, the answer is not feeling guilt and shame about it. The answer is paying attention as to why do I keep on grabbing that? What is it about that that's leaning towards me? And I'm leaning towards what am I trying to escape by grabbing this, right? And making peace with that's where you are. A big part of the self trust system is being able to meet yourself where you are with kindness, compassion, and grace. Because a lot of us want to be in step 100, but we are not acknowledging that we are in step number one because we shouldn't have to be there. I should be further ahead by now. Why am I still being punished in this way? Another piece to that is to really have that self responsibility. I think we often run from self responsibility because it implies punishment. When you think about being a kid and you're getting in trouble, then what's the first thing that comes to mind? When the first thing that comes to mind is to be like, well, I don't want to take responsibility because I'm going to be the one to get in trouble. I'm going to get punished. And those patterns, they come into us with adulthood. So as a result of that, we run away from them when it's time to take responsibility. And there are some things that are not our fault. And I don't disagree with that. I don't run away from those things. But your healing of those things is your responsibility. So being able to see that and to give yourself grace through that process, give yourself compassion through that process is very important, because when you don't give yourself that grace, you don't see your own humanity. And when you don't see your own humanity, you don't see the humanity in other people. And then you begin to perpetuate the same things that you wish that you were not exposed to. So after that, the third stage I've discovered is what I call the thriving stage. Here is when you begin to feel free, you begin to feel enthusiastic, you're seeing progress, but you can get comfortable here because it feels good. And it's important that we stretch ourselves beyond that comfort zone. It's important that we give ourselves room to grow, because when you're not growing, you're dying. So it's very important that we're constantly moving in that state where we are growing, where we're pushing ourselves. Because when you push yourself, you can move on to the next stage, which is what I call the steering stage, where you're not just thriving, but you're choosing how you thrive. A lot of us have come from a space where thriving is the goal. I just want to thrive. That used to be me when I was going through depression. I'm like, I just want to thrive. And then I realized, oh, I can do more than thrive. I can choose how I thrive. I can direct how I thrive. I can amplify how I thrive. And I can bring others along with me for the ride if I want to. So the self-trust system is a path to help you do that and to navigate that. And I do it in 90 days with my clients, which are mostly female founders that I work with, so that they can bring that into their businesses. And the goal is that if I can teach you how to trust yourself, then then I'm also teaching you how to trust God, because God is the reason why we are here, right? I mean, whoever believes whatever they believe, I'm sharing my experience, but for me, my intuition is the voice of God within me. So if the voice of God is telling me to do something, then I'm going to shift on that voice. But self-trust is a three-part process. You have to be able to trust that God is in your heart and is telling you what to do, so that you can trust that you can execute on that vision. And then you have to be able to trust that you'll be exposed to the people and the perspectives to help you bring that vision to life. And a lot of people are missing one of those things. We want to trust other people, but we don't trust ourselves. We want to trust ourselves, but we don't trust God. We're questioning, is this my vision? Should I be doing this? Am I good enough for this? And what I teach my clients to do is to silence the voices in the outside so they can listen to the voice in the inside. So they can work with the self-doubt, they can nurture the inner critic, and they can take action towards what they envision. Because if it wasn't meant for you to do it, it wouldn't be in your heart. You wouldn't see it. You wouldn't feel it. And that's what I want to see in everybody. I think a lot of people want to live the dream life, but have an attitude. I don't want you to live your dream life with an attitude. I want you to love that life. And I don't want you to live vicariously through me. I want you to live through you, because you have something powerful to share to the world. And we can all do these things. It's just a matter of being uncomfortable for them, because it's going to be different than what you've been taught in some cases. It's going to look like it's in direct conflict with those things. So it's important that you show up for yourself. And the self-trust system is a path to help you do that.
That was a word right there. You said a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still stuck on, if you're not growing, you're dying. I feel like it's a bunch of guys who are 5'7" watching this right now, and they're like, "Dang, am I dying right now?" But no, that was deep. That was deep. And P. Johnson, she says, or he or she says, "Say it, sis." A says, "Dropping gems." Travis is saying, "I love the wisdom." I missed a few of the comments. I think Donnie, I think this was to KG. She's so gorgeous. I'll play her one-on-one. So you got a fan out there. Ken is talking about a natural hair, talking about how big it was in the 70s. And I guess because of integration, a lot of that has gone away. He also mentioned burning bridges is not a good idea. And I think we all have to figure out how to, when it's time to cut things loose and maybe hopefully keep up that relationship. As I think I touched on it, but one of the three pillars that Ace I know is focusing on with this entire group and this brand is faith, love, and healing. And for me, and I think probably Cassandra, you would agree, I mean, food kind of encompasses all of these things. So I'm curious, how does food and love for you go hand in hand? And a second part to that question, is food healing? Because I think we talk a lot about the healing of like kind of just like your mental, but also we obviously need food to live. So can you talk about how food, yes, is food healing? I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for the ice cream truck in the background. You know, it's nice outside.
I ain't gonna lie. I was like, yo, that ice cream truck is sitting on your corner. I'm like, it's not moving, but hey, it's all good. It's getting warm. It's cool.
I'm good. Yeah, I think you talked about it not being mental, but I think a lot of people do eat food to it is a very much a mental thing, based on what they eat and what they don't eat. And I think just food in general has been used for so many years for medicinal purposes. So I think starting there, talking about food and healing, that's where it really begins. And you think about, you know, just plant-based meals and different herbs that are for, you know, different ailments. Food is healing in that sense. And I know that everybody has like their food, whether it's a guilty pleasure or not, that it's like, it could take you from a space, you know, where it's like, okay, we're gonna go here and get this dish. Like for me, that's ice cream. So it's like, we're gonna go get ice cream. Like that could change my whole day, you know, and it's really a love language. We talk about food and love being hand in hand. Food is a love language, like whether it's going out to eat or being in the kitchen, making a meal for yourself and being able to honor yourself with what you're making or cooking for someone else. You know, I think that there's love and healing in that. So yeah, food, I don't know. Do y'all?
Okay. No, that was dope. I mean, Ken said, yeah, these sharp teeth was not made for munching leaves. I'm sure maybe vegans have something to say about that. But I actually have a follow-up question, right? And this is a little bit anecdotal, but I think if you go on Twitter, you will see certain dishes align with like certain moments. How could someone who's trying to impress you, what would they make for you that would like really just like, whoa, you killed it, right? I know I saw on Twitter, women's go-to meal is shrimp linguine Alfredo. So that's step one. We don't want no shrimp linguine Alfredo, apparently, according to Twitter. But I'm curious for Cassandra, how could someone impress you?
That's a tough question. I feel like for me, it's about the effort too. Like it's really about the effort. Like I had someone make me a poached egg once and they did not know that I do not like poached eggs. But I was so like, oh my God, I was so flattered because poached eggs are not easy to make. Like
I don't even know how to start.
That takes a little so like making a poached egg for me, like I was just so happy and so elated that they took the time to learn how to make this dish. And you know, I couldn't enjoy it because it's not my thing, but the fact that they, you know, took the effort to learn how to make this dish and made it for me, like that means a lot to me. So for me, it's not really necessarily like what dish it is, but the fact that you're taking out of your time, going to buy groceries is a job. Okay, so finding time out of your busy schedule to go and get groceries, to sit down and like put together an idea for something that you think is going to make me happy, that means a lot to me. So yeah, I would start there.
Okay, looks like Ace is asking, what's a meal that can impress each of the panelists? So I'm gonna just go down the line real quick. KG, is there a meal that's is it an effort thing or is it a certain meal? Is there something that really gets it going?
It's not an effort or a certain thing. It actually has to taste good.
Ooh.
So like I'm really big on seasoning my food. I season stuff overnight. I let things marinate. I come up with sauces. So if it don't taste good, I mean, F the effort. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's not something that I'm gonna enjoy, unfortunately, I'm gonna let you know.
That's a fact.
And I seasoned it till my ancestors tell me to stop. So you need to do the same. Like it has to taste good, and if it doesn't, it ain't. There's nothing you can do about it.
So they could have worked all day, but if it don't taste good, it ain't good.
I don't think I've ever had someone cook for me and it wasn't good. So that's a good start.
Okay.
But, I mean, even your hot dog got to have a little butter or something on it.
A little relish. Okay. Nori, how about for you? I feel like you have a list.
I'm here thinking really hard. Like, I don't think for me, food is not my love language. Like, I do enjoy food, but I'm shifting out of my relationship with food because for so many of my years of my life, food was my space of comfort. And I ate not out of health or out of need, but out of just fear, insecurity, and protection. So my relationship with food has shifted a lot over the years, whereas now I just want to eat to give my body what it needs, to give my body the best nutrients it needs so that I can perform and I can show up as the best version of myself. So I was really thinking hard here, like, what could my husband make for me that will impress me? And honestly, the only thing that comes to my mind, so I'm from Honduras, I mentioned, and we make tortillas, flour tortillas, and we make them from scratch. And he loves them. And I make them once every 3 months because, I'm not trying to eat them like that. And if he made that for himself, that would impress me. Like if he was like, babe, I've been watching you make this food and this tortillas, and you know what? I've been taking notes on the side. You wasn't paying attention, babe. And I made myself these flour tortillas. Would you like to taste one? That probably would impress me more than him making something for me because I don't cook. Like I cook my own food and JP gets his own food cooked. So it's like food, our relationship with food has changed a lot. Now, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have told you that you could impress me on making some seafood paella, getting it straight from Madrid. That would impress me. I would have said that. But now I've shifted out of that a little bit.
Okay, cool. So hopefully JP's watching. Maybe he's under like a pseudo name, so he's gonna make his own.
He's not.
Okay.
He's
no.
not.
Okay.
Okay.
He's aware. Okay. Aisha, how about you?
I think it's less about the food. So I'm a pescatarian. My teeth is fine with chomping on leaves. So whoever said that, okay, don't come for me. But I think for me, it's remembering. I think so often people forget that I don't eat certain things. So you can cook anything, but if it's veggie, then I'm like, okay, you listen, you pay attention. Don't try to feed me somebody's steak. So I'm very simple. But also mac and cheese. If your mac and cheese is on point, we can get married tomorrow morning.
Okay. So I sense a trend, and it's number one is about remembering, listening, the effort for at least 3 out of the 4. And then for KG, you just need to taste good. So that's important. And I see Eric, he agrees with you, Aisha. He says, I don't know if it's a meal, but knowing what kind of food I like and making a meal that comes from that knowledge that you listened and putting in an effort is something that he appreciates. And Ken says that's all people of food when it comes to the seasoning. Make sure it's seasoned. We do not like bland, but no swine. So KG, I want to come back to you. I mentioned those 3 pillars, faith, love, and healing. And I can only imagine in your career thus far, you've had to navigate all of those things, maybe, juggling them at times. But for some people who may be tuned in and watching and maybe saying, hey, I would love to do some of the things that you've done. When you look back on your achievements, can you remember some times that you struggled where you needed to lean on faith or a loved one to kind of help you see through? And maybe you can give like a specific example because those are really helpful for people.
Okay. Well, relocating to a new city by yourself with no family, no friends, into a new work environment with new coworkers you never met is very difficult. And I think what I realized, one thing that was missing was definitely I'm from New York City. Thank you. I live in Atlanta. I'm from New York City, Staten Island at that, which is crazy. you know, it was just a very lonely and very difficult thing to have. And I'm a member still of FCBC, and it's just like I tried to do the virtual church thing. I just miss physically being in the building. That's something that has been a part of my life the whole time. I miss basketball. That's something that's always been a part of my life, but I just don't have the time for it now. And my loved ones. I never realized how much taking my nieces to school was healing. You know, spending time with them was healing. You know, and so now I find myself when I get in those moments of I'm still technically here alone, I FaceTime my nieces or I watch their TikToks, and it just gives me that I never knew how much it was healing to me until when I got into those moments where I'm like by myself in my apartment, like, oh my gosh, I love the way, you know, my life is going, but I'm genuinely here by myself. Those are the moments that I realize like that's my healing. Faith, I've just now started saying to myself, it doesn't matter that I'm not physically in the building because no one is physically in the building at FCBC anymore. So I've been tuning into Pastor Mike and his son now preaching it, which was like weird. I was like, what? I missed so much, you know. And then as far as love is concerned, just learning to love myself unconditionally. I know I'm not perfect. I know I make mistakes. I'm human, and I had to learn to stop penalizing myself for all the mistakes that I've made. I'm very, very harsh on myself. No one's perfect, but I strive for perfection. So just teaching myself how to really just love myself and who I am in the space I am and accepting myself, flaws and all. And then whatever happens in the future happens. But yes, those are the things. Healing, family, faith, back on my church game, and then love, truly loving myself, flaws and all.
Great. And Cassandra, I'm going to ask that question to you as well. Were there times that you struggled, needed faith, and how did you see that through?
Yeah, I was trying to think of a specific reason, but as an entrepreneur, it feels like every day. Like a specific time, it's like there's lows and there's highs, and when it's low, it's bad. So I feel like it's a constant like having to really be disciplined, right? Because it's not about motivation. Sometimes the motivation is not there. It's about discipline and really leaning on my faith and trusting that everything's going to work out. And that, you know, if I have the vision, the provision, you know, will follow. So yeah, I don't think it's about like any like certain moment, because there's been a lot of moments. But again, like just really leaning into my relationship with God and praying about it, praying on it, trusting him, trusting myself that I can make it through and push through, and really looking at my support system as well for that extra oomph, and having the humbleness to reach out and say, you know, I'm having a hard time right now, and you know, I don't feel like prayer is working, or it's not enough. I need a team. I need my team to, you know, kind of hover around me and help me push through. So I think it's really been leaning on that and leaning into my support system.
Absolutely. Aisha, I'm curious. So as a therapist, how do you offer support in healing to others?
In my practice?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, just creating space does a lot of the work. I think you'd be surprised at how many people just don't have an ear to listen uninterrupted. I think a lot of times in daily life, like we'll share something and then someone will respond with their experience or their advice or, you know, what they think you should do. But very rarely do we get the space to just say like, I'm really sad today, and not necessarily need someone to try to fix it or try to change it. So I think a really big part of my practice is just creating a space that's non-judgmental, that's safe, and where we can really like explore. You know, I think Black folks and minorities in general don't really get to have the luxury of like exploration. We're pushed into action really fast. We're constantly having to like hustle and move, and especially being in New York, things are constantly going, and we don't really have the time or opportunity to like explore and ask ourselves questions. Well, how did I feel about that? How will I feel about that tomorrow? What did that make me think of? What does that make me think of myself? Like being able to ask these questions to go a little bit deeper. And then also, I think I do just a lot of mirroring, reflecting back to people so that they feel heard, so that they feel seen and understood too.
And I'm curious.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. But in creating that space, have you had to navigate the stigma of Black people not going to therapy? Like, do you think that's still a thing? Is it, because I think oftentimes what happens with stigmas is people say them for so long, even when they're not true, people still say them. And I know, for instance, this is all about Black women, so I'm gonna keep it there. But I know Black women in particular don't necessarily have a problem with talking about their feelings, but overall, they say the Black community doesn't like therapists, so they're not as engaged. Do you think that's still true? Or if so, how have you navigated it? If not, like, what would you say? Where are we at with therapy?
I definitely think it's more acceptable now. Like, I think spirituality and self-care those are buzzwords now. And so if we're thinking like popular culture wise, I think it's a little bit more acceptable. The older, I want to say like older Black folks is where that discrepancy is, because I think a lot of them, and some of us even, were taught you keep the dirty laundry in the house, you don't air your business, you don't tell people your business, and also you push through, right? You're sad, do it anyway. If you're upset, leave it at home and show up to work. And so I think, you know, older folks hold on to that a little bit tighter, but younger patients of mine are really excited to explore themselves and to figure out who they are. And so I don't see it, you know, too much, but also if you're coming to me, you're interested in therapy, so maybe I'm a little bit biased there. But yeah, I think it's becoming more acceptable, which I'm excited about, because I think we have a lot of generational trauma that needs to be explored, and therapy is a great place to do that.
So thank you. And Nori, you talked about living with your husband. You all are out there in Fort Lauderdale. You talked about how space is important to you. And I know you got there through communication and just figuring out what works for you. But how would you kind of maybe advise or suggest, encourage other people to find how to achieve the balance between like their work life and love life, particularly like even in quarantine, the fact that everything is being home. And you mentioned you and your husband are both working from home. So I can only imagine. Right. And I think people, when we were young, we always said, I would never work with my spouse. And it's like a lot of people are forced to do that now. It's like your coworker is your children, your spouse, your dog, your everything. How would you kind of encourage people to find the balance between the two? Or is there a balance? And while you're thinking, I think I just heard someone say the other day, are we, I'm gonna mess this up. Are we working longer, or are we just like living at work? I said that wrong. Don't worry about it. But something like that. And it was just kind of one of those things that kind of made me think like, wow, like we got to figure this out. Like we got to figure this out.
I think when it comes to the word balance, right, it can be very subjective, because balance often has a lot to do with how you navigate a situation. So for me, if I like to work a lot, then to me, working a lot may not be a problem, because I like to do that a lot. I'm not challenged by that and I enjoy it. But if somebody doesn't, then just working a little may be challenging for them, right? So there's a lot of subjectivity involved with the idea and the notion of balance, because it doesn't take into account how you define balance based on what you would love and what you care about. What I think has been really important for me and my husband in our relationship has to be intentionality, being really intentional to create spaces where we are nourishing ourselves in the areas that matter to us. But first we need to define what those are, right? So for me, for the both, we have a lot of overlap. JP and I came in with a lot of similar interests in our partnership. So there are things that we don't have to create balance around in the traditional sense, because we both enjoy those things. Like working out, for example, we both love working out. So we are currently playing tennis together. We picked that up to create some balance from looking at screens all the time. We were like, we're gonna pick one activity that we do that does not require the screen when we are spending time together, because I got tired of just looking at Netflix stand-ups, looking at all the documentaries I can find on the internet, looking at all the YouTube funny videos that I could locate. And we really wanted to just be able to get some space from the things that were out of harmony. I don't really look for balance. I look for harmony in how I'm living my life. So if I'm in a space where I feel like, okay, I'm not moving enough, I need to bring more movement into my life. If I'm in a space where my husband and I are spending a lot of time looking at screens, we need to bring some out of screen time into our lives. If we are in a space where we're not eating as healthy, we need to bring some harmony into how we're moving with our food. Because I think of life as this dance, right? And dance is about, what makes the dance beautiful is the highs, the lows, the movement, the softness. So I look at my life as that dance, and I try to bring as much harmony as possible into that. And it changes. Some weeks harmony looks like playing tennis 5 times a week. Other weeks it looks like spending 3 days at the beach. Other weeks it looks like spending a day reading, just the two of us. We both love to read. We are avid readers, and we actually read together. So like we read the same book and we'll discuss the book that we are reading. There's a lot of, we call ourselves intellectuals in our home, because we're constantly like, hey, I read this and I'm referencing this. Like between the two of us right now, reading like 10 books is actually pretty insane. So for us, it's having that harmony where it's like, okay, how can we both navigate and be the best version of ourselves through that process? JP and I, we just, I have this podcast, and he recorded an episode with me for the new season, and we did something called the state of our marriage, where we talk openly about how are we doing as a couple, how are the last 5 years been and 6 years been. And we talked about the first 5 years. We were arguing about the little stuff, the dishes, the laundry, who gonna fold what, why the dish is still here, you ate this, why you didn't wash your dish. Like we passed that part now, where now we are at the place, what, the dishwasher. That's a real one. Yeah, you will be shocked at how much dishes bring challenges into a relationship. Let me tell you that much. So really now we had to enter the space where we have one focus. How can I be the best partner for you to be the best version of yourself? And that's it. So now that we are in that space, it's all about harmony. That means I need to know what does Nori look like at her best, and he needs to know what JP looks like at his best. That's not Nori's job, and that's not JP's job. We both have to care for ourselves and then bring that insight into the other person so that they can be best equipped to be there and show up for us. So in our partnership, that's what harmony looks like. And it's been really uncomfortable, because there had to be times when he had to call me out on stuff. I wasn't ready for that, but I had to be ready for that. And now we are at the point where we can have these honest conversations and know that it's because we love each other and we want to be the best. So to me, it's about harmony and not really about balance. And it's about being uncomfortably honest about the fact that that harmony shifts regularly, and creating space to check on those things so that I can make sure I am constantly evaluating and determining if things need to shift between the two of us. I always ask him, yo, how you feeling? How's your spirit today? That's my go-to question. How's your spirit today? And he's like, oh, I feel, blah, 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 blah. And we'll talk about those things. And I'm like, you need some space? Nah, I'm good. Or yeah, I need some space today. All right, well, do what you need to do. That has been what has made us a really strong unit, and being available to see each other change and grow without being threatened. I can't stress the importance of that.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. And I see Cassandra said she loves that, not balance, harmony. That's really dope. And Travis, a couple minutes ago, said balancing work and life is never easy, especially these days when workers are constantly in contact with each other via mobile devices, laptop computers. That can make it so easy to bring work home at the end of the day. It could be even more complicated when you're trying to juggle work from home with your life at home. Like I said, I don't have no children or anything, and I just salute everyone who has children, because to manage children on top of your spouse, on top of work, on top of everything else, and even, single parents, I mean, it's a lot. So all of that taken consideration. There's a lot of chatter when we talked a little bit about therapy. I see Travis said Black people are extremely afraid to express themselves to a therapist. There was some talk about religion, colonization, slavery. Ken said we have less trauma if we had less police brutality. That's a whole nother entity. And you don't see a whole lot of depressed rich folks of color. Maybe white, but not us. I don't know how true that is, but maybe that's true. But yeah, so these are just some of the comments. I know we're coming up on the hour, but people are saying therapy is key. That's great. So I do want to ask one more question and go around. And Ace, I'd love for you to jump in if you had anything as well. But I would love for you all to just talk about, where did you get your start in your career, or at least where you're at now when you kind of realize this is what you wanted to do, and how and what led you to get to where you're at, and kind of where do you even want to continue to go? And I'll start with Aisha.
For some reason, I knew you were going to choose me first. So, I mean, I think I've always been a helper by nature. And when I studied psychology, I was really intrigued by how experiences shape a person. And so I think school really set me up for success when it came to my career. I got my master's from NYU. And I think it really gave me an opportunity to understand myself better. And I think as I started to heal, I fell more in love with helping other people heal. And so early on in my career, I worked at a few rehabs. I have a background primarily specializing in addiction. So I worked in a few rehabs. I worked at a bunch of nonprofits, and none of it was really cutting it. I'm not like a 9-to-5er. I can't, working for the man just isn't my thing, or the woman. But yeah, in my private practice now, I think I was able to create the flexibility I've always needed. I told Ace I was going to be late because I see patients on Sundays so that I can take like 3-4 days off during the work week. So, you know, my private practice has allowed me to be flexible. It's hard to tell being an entrepreneur, but it really allows me to create like the life that I want, and to have opportunities to do talks like this. I do a lot of speaking. I partner with a lot of schools to provide kind of workshopping around healing. So yeah, just kind of learning what I needed and what works for me, and really like chasing that unapologetically has kind of got me where I'm at.
Hey, KG, how about you?
I would say getting that first job outside of college and sitting at a desk that I did not like, in a position I did not like, and being overworked and underpaid is what got me to where I am. I realized that I didn't like that space. I thought I would. I thought it was an opportunity. You know, since I love basketball, I was working at Madison Square Garden in sales, and I just thought it was like, okay, well, you know, it's still in the world that I love, but it just wasn't for me. And then I would say going over through the years and just being out and about and hustling and doing so many gigs, I always worked in experiential. I've always worked to tell so many brands stories. But what I realized and where I am today is that often these brands want to tell these stories to us, but they don't have people that look like us on the team, but they'll hire us to work the event so it could seem as if they're kind of woke or in tune. And it's a false narrative. So where I am today, general manager of Trap Music Museum, you know, it started with the thought of people trying to understand where it came from, who said it first, and there's all this stuff on social, to it being a pop-up, to now it's permanent. And it's a story told by us. It's a story for us. It's curated by us. We all look alike. We represent the brand. So, you know, moving forward, where I see myself going is continuing to be a part of that marketing, experiential advertising world, to be in that room. So there's no longer shirts that come out H&M with a monkey on it, you know, with a black kid wearing a monkey shirt. People aren't in the room, but they pay us to be in the ads, you know? So I think that's where my career is heading, more of the CMO route, or, you know, in advertising, and just making sure that we are a part of the storytelling, and being a representative of that, because I've been doing that in so many different capacities when I was working with all the liquor brands and all the activations, been doing that, but now it's time to be on the higher level, to be the person in the room to make sure that when they pitch to us, it makes sense and it's genuine in the stories that they're telling.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Nori?
Yeah, so for me, I really got started to this journey because I wanted to learn to love myself. There were so many spaces where I was just really dark, like I didn't really know. I think people saw me as confident, so they didn't realize how much I wasn't confident, how much that confidence was hiding pain and suffering within. So I really wanted to stop feeling like like a fraud about those things, and just wanted to really step into who I was and own it, right? So this journey became out of that. I knew very early that I wanted to figure Nori out. And I've become so enamored by the idea of self-mastery and getting to a place where I can really understand my patterns, I can understand my behaviors, really thinking about how can I really help other people without being able to help myself. So a lot of the work that I've done is to put myself in a position where I can see my own humanity, I can see my own faults, I can see my own challenges, and I can treat them with kindness and compassion so that when people show up as human, I don't fault them for being human. I don't treat them less than because they're human. Instead, I extend to them the same grace I extend myself regularly. So working with female founders now, it's really a beautiful opportunity because a lot of my clients have clients, they're coaches, they're healers, they're consultants. So they can take the things that we work on together and help other people by helping themselves. And I see myself as amplifying that as many ways as I can. Right now, my framework is called the self-trust system, and I'm getting prepared to release a self-trust quiz so that people can know where are they in the spectrum so that they can understand what they need to do to move beyond that. And I really see myself publishing a book where it talks about the system and how to navigate it. Eventually, I told my husband that I want to have a talk show where I can really unpack these things and do it in a way that is a little different, do it in a way that's really rooted in that uncomfortable honesty and that self-responsibility that we often run away from. And I see myself championing those conversations, but more so facilitating them than anything else, because I think we all, like Aisha mentioned, want to be seen, heard, and understood. And it's the lack of those spaces that sometimes lead us to feeling alone or really feeling lonely and feeling like no one sees us and sees our pain. So to me, it's important to be that vessel, not necessarily so that people can be like, oh my God, Nori's so dope. I already know Nori's dope. I don't need you to do that. But so that you can know that you can be dope and you can achieve those things yourself. So that's really where I see myself going in the future.
Okay. Shout outs to the Nori show. Looking out for that one for sure. And Cassandra. Cassandra.
Cass is fine.
Cass. Okay. Cass.
Where I'm trying to go, I feel is always evolving. But I realize that where I'm at, no matter what, is backed by three things. One of them is education. I went specifically to high school for teaching because I thought that was going to be my life. And it wasn't until I became a business owner that I realized that education can look differently. It doesn't have to be in a classroom. And I really didn't get an opportunity to do that until I got into hospitality and until I started Food Before Love to really realize like I can still create a space for learning. It just might look a little different. The second thing, piggybacking off what KG said, was just storytelling. I started my career just by writing my experiences and talking about that. And it's just been really important for me to tell other people's stories and to create space for people to be able to share their story. So that's super important. And the last thing was just having the freedom to create. Creating for me is big. Like, that's the only reason why I'm still in this entrepreneur game, is like having that freedom to create for me is like what drives me and moves me forward. So when I look at the future of what I'm going to do, I want to be able to be in a space where I'm educating others, continuing to educate myself, and forever being a student. Being able to continue telling those stories and share other people's stories, and then just having that freedom to create, whatever it might be, whatever iteration of it it is. And now I'm working on like being on a big screen somewhere talking about food and travel, specifically in the ice cream space is like what I want to do. But who's to say that's not like, I know that's not the end of the road. It's just like the next stop for me. But yeah, that's what I'm on the road to next.
Oh, so it wasn't really an ice cream truck. It was really you just playing the ice cream sound in the background. Got it.
That's what I was saying in my head. I was like, she probably was playing as a theme song.
Exactly. Cool. No, thank you all for being so open and transparent. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the dialogue, especially the people in the chat. Travis had me going the whole time, rolling. Ken and Travis going back and forth. Appreciate it. Ace, I want to pass it over to you. What else do you want to add and expand upon?
I just want everyone to really experience like this panel. So I know a lot of phenomenal women in my life. A lot. I have a lot of women mentors. I probably have like 1 or 2 male mentors, but I have a lot of woman mentors. And into this panel, each one of you have changed my life more than you know, from Cass to Yanori, Crystal, everyone on here. Y'all, because you guys have known me since I was a kid. When I say a kid, I mean I was a young college kid. I just came out of college, and you guys have seen me grow, giving me professional tips, um, men tips, and don't ever forget, as guys that only a man can give you tips about being a man. No, woman can give you tips about how being a man too, and I think that's very important. And I think the one thing that I got from everyone, before this panel even created, and why I chose these people, because self-love between all of them here is very important. I have, been with Crystal, hang out with Crystal. I have pretty much have hanging out with everyone here, and it's just, phenomenal to have you guys in my life, and to bring you into Kings and Queens love. And I think it's really important because at the end of the day, you as a young guy and as a young man, you're like, oh, I may not ever meet Michelle Obama, but I have you guys. And I think that's pretty important, to say, like,
Well, y'all are Michelle Obama
I'm so
in your own right. Y'all are Michelle Obama.
That is how I
in your
like to be
own right.
celebrated.
I do want to say
That's how you
that.
celebrate us. Please.
There you go.
Yes, all right. So, and then just for this Kings and Queens love, it's a growth for me. It's a growth of, I want everyone to experience love. I want everybody to rediscover love. I want everyone, to love themselves. And I think that, everyone has touched on that. And as Marquise has said over this time in the panel, my 3 pillars are faith, healing, and love. And I think that I want everyone to discover that, especially the younger generation, because they have a different idea of what love is. And I think I want to help them out. And I also want to help my current generation, and even the people that's like Travis, who is my godfather, and Darren Ferguson, who's also here too. Both my godfathers, who are, very, important to me, and have shown me, like, loving a woman, and just loving women every day is important. And I think that I just want everyone from this call to get, how to better heal, how to better love someone, and how to love yourself is the first component in that. And Marquise too, because I love him too.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so thank you everybody, the panelists, especially Aisha, Nori, Cass, KG, Ace, of course. Really appreciate the time. It's still Sunday, so hopefully maybe you can go get some ice cream, make your loved one their special meal, sip a little bit of glass of wine. Jesus did drink wine himself as well. So really appreciate you everybody just taking the time. And like Ace said, those 3 pillars, faith, love, and healing, definitely want to lead with that in everything that we do. So everybody have a great rest of the evening, a great blessed week coming up. We're speaking positivity into the air. So enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody.